Welcome to the business interview. I'm Markus Karlsson. Is the eurozone debt crisis spinning out of control? And are the days of the European single currency numbered? Well, the warnings are stacking up, and there are those who say it's time to prepare for a world without the euro. My guest today says there's a 50-50% chance or risk it may even happen before Christmas. Jacques Attali is a leading economist here in France. He's a former presidential advisor, as well as founder and current president of Planet Finance. It's a non-profit organization that tries to alleviate poverty through promoting microfinance. Welcome to the program.
Nice to be with you.
Now, could the eurozone really unravel within the next few weeks? Do you really believe so?
It could begin the process of dismantling in the next weeks, that's true. Not the end of it, but it could begin, that's true. I wrote more than 10 years ago in one of my books that if the eurozone will not become a federation, it will disappear before 2010. Therefore, fortunately, it didn't happen, but it's quite possible because there is a clear need for more federalism, for a common currency or single currency to survive. We don't have any example of a single currency without political power.
Is that the only thing that will save the euro at this stage? More fiscal union, more federalism, more Europe, basically?
What is needed is a short-term solution, which is quantitative easing from the central bank, as what it is done by the Bank of England or by the Fed. That's one. Second, what is needed is a more clear view of where the different governments are going into deficit reduction. Third will be control by the peers of what the others are doing. Peer monitoring is a key. And fourth would be a creation of a level of federation with a European tax at the eurozone level and capacity from the eurozone to raise funds through eurobonds, which exist in the UK as well as in the US at the federal level.
Now, you talked there about the European Central Bank taking a bigger role. You also talked about eurobonds. At the moment, Germany doesn't agree with those solutions at all.
But as far as the central bank, Germany has no say, because either we say the central bank is independent or it's not. And everybody says that the central bank is independent. But Germany has not his say on what the central bank will do. It's up to the central bank to play its role. And I understand.
But will Mario Draghi really go ahead with a large bond buying scheme all on his own?
It's exactly what the Bank of England is doing. It's exactly what the Fed has been doing for many years. And it is in the mandate of the central bank. And I have no reason not to believe it. And if he decided to do it, if the board of the European Central Bank decide to do it, they will not have to do it, because it will be enough to say that they will do it to alleviate the pressure on the spreads on the European bonds, and that will not be needed. But it is not in the hands of the Germans, not also in the hands of the French. It's in the hands of the central bank.
What would happen to business in Europe and also to the common man in the streets if, indeed, the eurozone unravels, if the eurozone disappears?
Well, Europe will not disappear. France will still stay a very wealthy country. I think that the real loser of the game will be Germany. If the eurozone has a problem, Germany will be in the worst case scenario than any other country. First, because no one will quit the eurozone, only Germany will quit, and then the German new currency, D-Mark or whatever, will be very high, and it will be very difficult for Germany to export, while the other country within a new existing euro will live with it.
But tell us a little bit more about why you think that Germany would be the hardest hit, because usually, of course, Germany is the biggest eurozone economy at the moment.
No, it's not true. It's not true. Germany has a lot of problems. Germany has a huge demographic problem. Germany banks are...
But it has a low unemployment level, for instance?
Well, it has a public debt equal to a French public debt. It has his banks are in terrible shape, even banks owned by the governments or local governments. And on the long run, the German industry is totally linked to a machine tool, which is certainly only linked to the lack of machine tool industry in China. As soon as industry in China is developing, the German, on the long run, is in a much worse situation than France. If Germany quit the euro, the real loser will be Germany. And the eurozone will without Germany will be another eurozone, but it will not be a disaster. I'm strongly against that, but I hope it will not happen. But it will not be a nightmare.
I want to move on to another topic now. Now, as I said before in my introduction, you're the president of Planet Finance, which is all about microfinance, which is all about giving small loans to small businesses, primarily in developing nations. Is that segment, is microfinance feeling a pinch as the eurozone at least seems to be heading for a recession?
Well, first we should remember that the real crisis is in the US, not in eurozone. But therefore, do not say if eurozone is in crisis. If the OECD is in crisis. Second, I would say that no, for the moment we have not seen that. I was expecting that since 2008, but it didn't happen. Microfinance is developing enormously. Now we have more than almost 200 million clients or beneficiaries of microfinance, credit, saving, etc. And the funds are available, mainly funds coming from the South. It's South financing the South microfinance for the main part of it. The funds coming from the private sector from the North are growing because people realize that microfinance is a very safe, stable, and profit-making financing instruments. And then, for the moment, we don't see anything but a real growth.
So next Monday, you are organizing the International Microfinance Awards, which is an annual event these days. This is Planet Finance being the organizer. You're saying that we will see more growth in the next few years and that award ceremony will continue.
Planet Finance is the largest in Europe, one of the largest in the world organization to finance, advise and support microfinance. We work in 80 countries, and in those countries we find a lot of outstanding people doing outstanding projects. There are millions of startups, not as well known as Bill Jobs or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, but outstanding startup. And we decided 5 years ago to launch these microfinance awards in parallel of what is done with movie industry to make clear that there are a lot of good stories of amazing people, entrepreneurs around the world, and I'm sure that it will exist and will be more known even in the years to come.
When I looked at the people who will be awarded at this ceremony, they're mostly people from developing nations. Do you think that we'll see a growth of microfinance in the developed world as well, perhaps as an answer to
yes, it is true.
The eurozone crisis and the crisis in the United States, as you were referring to?
We do our best to develop microfinance, as I say, in 80 countries. 6 of the 7 laureates of these awards will be coming from the South, but 1 is coming from developed countries, where we believe that there is a room for, of course, a lot of micro-entrepreneurs, mainly in the suburbs, or what is called the zone urbaine sensible in France, which suburbs in US is more middle class than suburbs in Europe, which are more linked to poor people. But I do believe that there is a lot of room for developing entrepreneurship in poor people areas, because no way for them to find a job as civil servant or as employee in large factories. There is not enough growth for that. Their future, as the future of anyone, is to find his own aim, his own project, and microfinance is here to help them, and we do that.
When you talk there about microfinance and its progress, you're painting a pretty rosy picture of developing economies. Don't you think that there is a risk that the developing economies will take a hit if, once again, the developed world goes down the road of recession?
It is true. For the moment, we have not seen it. For the moment, microfinance is doing very well. We found the financing that we need, not as much as we need, because we try to grow as much as possible. But for the moment, the impact of the OECD country crisis on the South has not been strong enough to kill microfinance dynamism.
But are you confident that that's the situation that will persist, that we won't see a downturn?
If the US is able to solve this crisis, which is the core of the situation, if they are able to get out of a deadlock where they are for financing the deficit and the debt, yes, it's much more important than the European question.
And what's the risk of that happening? If we look at, for instance, the developed world once again, and the United States and the eurozone.
Well,
What do you think the risk is of another
risk-
soft patch or recession?
Well, low growth is certain. Worldwide, we are going to be around 4%, and there is a potential for 6% at the world level. 4% is a small growth, but for the world. But if the US is going into a recession, and it is not impossible, if Europe is going into a deep recession, and it is not impossible, then the crisis will reach those countries, and we'll see that the unemployment will grow. But I don't want to think about that.
The
Too dark
developing
scenario.
nations, they're more dependent on the United States at this stage than Europe. Is that what you're saying?
We are all interdependent. China is totally linked to Brazil. Brazil is linked to China. The first trade partner of Brazil is China. It's not anymore the US. And therefore, there is a new Silk Road, as it is said, from China, Brazil, Africa, India, which is avoiding the OECD countries. And those countries are trying to be less dependent of the OECD countries, but not yet.
All right, there's not the situation yet where we have decoupled the developing economies from the developed economies. Far from it. Thanks very much indeed, Jacques Attali from Planet Finance, for taking the time to speak to us today. You're watching France 24. Thanks for being with us.